Ethan, did you ask any good questions at school today? That's what my mom usually asked as we sat at the dinner table and shared our day's events. To tell you the truth, I really didn't like that question. Usually my answer was, I don't remember, or not really. If I had something to say, I might share that I asked my teacher to repeat the homework assignment or the page number of the book we were reading. To my mom, those were not good questions. Good questions were ones that made you think critically, questions that went beyond the surface, questions that challenged. She was not looking for me to ask the who, what, when, or where, but she was looking for me to ask the why or the how. So when we look at the very first question uttered by God in our Torah, at first glance, I don't think my mom would classify God's question as very good. God first questions Adam and Eve immediately after they eat from the tree of knowledge. They hide as they are newly aware of their nakedness. God says, Ayeka, where are you? Now that sounds like a pretty ridiculous question when we consider who is doing the asking. Certainly God, the great omniscient God, knows where Adam and Eve are hiding. So why then does God ask Ayeka? And Adam and Eve's response to God is even more confusing. Adam responds, I heard your voice, I was afraid, I hid myself. And then the excuses begin. Adam says, she made me do it. And Eve responds, the snake made me do it. Instead of owning up to their mistakes, excuses are all that Adam and Eve offer. Ayeka is the first question in the Bible, and it's the first question not answered. Martin Buber, a 20th century Jewish philosopher, tells the story of Rabbi Shneur Zalman. I tell this to Asher every night. The Hasidic rabbi of northern White Russia, who was put in jail because the opponents of the Hasidism had betrayed him to the Tsarist police. The warden of that prison fancied himself to be an intellectual of sorts. And so when he heard that there was a distinguished rabbi who was in prison, he decided to pay him a visit. The warden came in to the cell and introduced himself. He said, I've been browsing through your Bible, and I have found a number of logical inconsistencies. For example, when Adam sins, he hides. And God says to him, where are you? Now, if God was really omniscient, why does God have to ask Adam where he is? The rabbi looked at him and said, I will answer. But first, do you believe that the Bible is eternal and that every error, every generation, and every man is included in it? I believe this, the warden replied. Well then, said the rabbi, as if God were speaking to you. It is as if God were saying to you, you are 44 and a half years old. What are you doing with your life? Where are you? When the warden heard his own exact age mentioned, for a moment, a look of fear came over him, but then he shook it off. He got up and patted the rabbi on the back and said, that was a clever answer. And he made his way out of the room. But every so often after that experience, he would wake up in the middle of the night and hear that question, where are you? As we enter these high holy days, this is a season of Ayeka, the time when we are asked by God, together and alone, of where we are, to render a spiritual accounting not of our careers, but our compassion, not of our wealth, but our wisdom, not of our physical fitness, but to the fitness of our souls. So tonight I ask us, Ayeka, where are you? Where am I? Where are we? There's an easy answer. We're at 756 East Broad Street in the sanctuary this evening, or we're praying on live stream from the comfort of our own homes. Yet Ayeka is not a locational question. God asked the question not for God's sake, for God already knew the answer. God asked the question for our sake, because we need to hear the question. Ayeka, where are you emotionally, spiritually? Where are you in the relation to the work of the world around you? As good as our intentions are these high holy days, we still need to be asked these questions to prepare ourselves. Luckily, our tradition teaches us to answer God's question. Like the one-word question, there is a one-word answer. The answer is Hineni, here I am. We'll hear this answer tomorrow morning when we read the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, and God calls out, Abraham, Abraham. And Abraham responds, Hineni, here I am. Many of our religious school teachers, when taking attendance, encourage their students to say Hineni instead of the word Ani po, I am here. Po is just a location, but Hineni means I am present and ready. During these days of awe and throughout this year, when we asked, where are we? How can we say Hineni? I am present, I'm available, I'm open. Our liturgy for this evening guides us once again. In the beginning of the service, we stood in the front of an open ark as Cantor Goldman chanted Hineni, the same roots as Hineni. There is much mystery behind this prayer. All we know was it was written in the 19th century by an unknown cantor. The entire prayer is personal, an intimate confession of unworthiness, which the service leader recites to God as they muster up the courage with which to begin the service. It's a prayer of vulnerability and humility. A sense of humility, a sense of vulnerability, and a sense of awe is what we need to be present for these days. It's uncomfortable to look back at our past year and face the moments when we lied, or short-tempered, or judgmental. To be present means to come to these days of awe broken, acknowledging our missteps and open to change, committing to piecing together our relationships with God, our friends, our family, and ourselves. Yet these are not just traits that we need to develop to be present for the high holy days. I believe we need a sense of humility and vulnerability to be present in holy relationships, the ones we have with our family and friends. To be truly present in a conversation with a friend who is going through a rough patch in their life, there needs to be a sense of vulnerability, that you might not have the right answer or know the exact right thing to say. To be truly present for a loved one who is questioning a path is to be humble enough not to speak and give advice, but instead being there to listen and explore the options. In Exodus 24:12, God calls out to Moses and says, Moses, come up to the mount and be there. The rabbis asked, why was God redundant? If Moses was on top of Mount Sinai, where else would he be? They answer that we can be physically present, but we can still be very far away. Our minds, our souls, our intentions might be scattered. Moses had to be ready to receive the 10 Commandments and not think about the Israelites down below or his journey up the steep mountain. Ayeka, where are you? Perhaps my mom would think that this is a really good question. This is the question that we ask ourselves on Rosh Hashanah. We ask ourselves whether we are truly present, whether we are really here, not just in body, but here with our whole selves. We ask ourselves whether we are ready to do teshuvah, to make amends and to hold ourselves accountable to our loved ones, to our colleagues, to the people sitting around us here in our sanctuary, to the people sitting around you in your living room. We ask ourselves, what would it take to change our behavior in the new year? When God asks us, Ayeka, where are you? Will you be able to answer in 5783, Hineni, here I am. Shana Tova.